Welcome to Stage Dive, a podcast where we go deep on the art of live performance to help artists perform better on stage. I am your host, Jack Dawkins. I am a rapper, poet, and storyteller out of Boulder, Colorado. My guest for today is Michaela Ekström, who is an incredible beatboxer coming out of Sweden. She and I connected through Freestyle Life Supreme Academy, or now FLS Plus, as it has been rebranded. She is a true theater nerd down to her core and caught the Hamilton bug, which is how she got to FLS, which is how she got to beatboxing. From there, she has been relentless in her pursuit of the craft over the last 2 years, which finally culminated in her becoming the first woman ever to compete at the Swedish National Beatboxing Championship. So amazing. I loved our conversation. We talked all about anxiety, sharing her passion with her family, and how much she would like to come back and do more beatboxing in the United States. Enjoy my conversation with Michaela. Amazing. So the first question that I have for you is, how on earth, as someone who is in Sweden, did you find out that FLS was doing online classes?
Yes, that was because I am a musical theater nerd, or like more of that now than I was back then. But a little thing happened that this little tiny musical called Hamilton was released on Disney Plus, and I hadn't seen Hamilton. I didn't know that much about it, but I've heard that it was supposedly good. So like, okay, I'm gonna see it. And I was instantly obsessed. I think I saw it 3 times in 2 days. And it's 3 hours long.
It's not a short watch. And that's with like a 1-minute intermission, not like the proper 20-minute one you get in the theater. It is a solid 3-hour chunk of your day.
But I became instantly obsessed, and with that also became obsessed with everything that Lynn has created. So I did like the Lynn deep dive, and came across Freestyle Life Supreme, saw Sunrise, which is a masterpiece. Classic. Anyone listening, look it up on YouTube.
We'll put it in the show notes.
And then I found a podcast called Hamilcast, where I think a lot of the FLS members had been on. So I listened to their episodes and heard them talking about FLS Academy. And this was in the before time, so they were doing it in person. I was like, oh, that would be so cool. How can I go to New York and be there for 8 weeks? Like, that's how much I wanted to do it. But since there was a pandemic, they opened up for virtual classes. So I took one. And that's that.
Amazing. I think you were there. Were you there August, that the first one they did?
No, I joined almost exactly a year ago. January 28th, 2021.
Okay.
So 2 years ago. Yeah.
So 2 years ago. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, so good. Amazing. Obviously we will delve more deeply into that. But before that, you mentioned you are a musical theater nerd. Like, can you explain what that means? How did you get excited about musical theater? Were you in a lot of theater? Like, how did you start getting connected to performance through that kind of pipe?
So how it started for me, I think I've always loved it as performing as a child, even though I've been kind of shy and maybe not like the class of the clown, but I know there's a story from when I was 2 years old. I pulled out a chair in our living room and I was completely naked except for the fact that I was wearing like my mother's stockings. So I pulled out the chair completely naked, stood up on this chair, and had an opera concert. So I guess performance has been in me for a long time. But how I found theater was there's this like summer play in Sweden that is aired around Christmas, and it's new each year, and they film it during the summertime. So we would watch that every year, and I loved it. So one year we went to the place where they filmed it and saw it live, and I think that was the first time I've like experienced passion or experienced like very strong love for a thing, because I looked in the on the stage, I was like, wow, I want to do that. I want to do what they're doing. That's so cool. Um, so after that, I started taking some theater classes, and then I did theater in high school. Um, and I was fully set on doing theater in college. I There is like one or two like big theater colleges in Sweden, um, and I signed up for the audition and I practiced the monologues, but then I never showed up because I chickened out. I got scared,
Okay.
so I never did the audition. And then, but then after that, no, I think it was around the same time I started taking improv classes and fell in love with that because I'm an overthinker. Uh, so to do something where you
Relatable.
yeah, who isn't? But the thing I love about improv is that you have to be completely present in order to create this thing in the moment with others, and it's so freeing. It's scary as, can I swear, by the way? Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it's
100%.
scary as fuck,
100%.
but it's very deliberating and freeing, and that's why I love it. Um, and I I haven't been like a musical theater nerd for very long because like Broadway and musicals and stuff like that wasn't around me that much growing up in Sweden. So it wasn't until like I've always loved musicals whenever I've seen them. I've seen a few of them translated in Swedish. But it wasn't until I went to West End in 2018 and saw, what did I see? Phantom and Book of Mormon. And that's when I really started to like dive into Broadway musicals and stuff like that.
That's a contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I have to ask about that because that is two very different shows. But before that, like I wanna dig into two things. So it sounds like you were having this experience of like inside you wanted to perform. You were up on the stool, you wanted to go to these colleges. Externally, there was this fear. Like what was it like sort of experiencing that push and that pull simultaneously?
Frustrating. Because I felt like something was holding me back, and I felt like I couldn't do the things I wanted to do because I was so scared. Um, yeah, frustrating, I think, is the best word to describe it.
Yeah. Do you remember if you could like place or name the fear? Like was it something specific you were scared of, or it was just like an embodied like
Um, I mean, I think it has always been a combination of like performance anxiety and social anxiety. Um, and I've always felt like if if what I'm doing is not perfect from the beginning, I can't do it because people are gonna think I'm bad or I'm making a fool out of myself, or like I, that's a big part of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting soup, right? So it's like, how are they going to think about me?
Mm.
Like, and also, like a version of perfectionism,
Yeah.
right? Like, if it's not perfect, I cannot. And yet, as you well know now, there is no such thing as perfect performance. There is certainly no such thing as perfect practice. Like fucking up is a big part of the whole thing. So like if you're like, oh, how do I do this without fucking up? That's a trick question.
You don't,
It's
exactly.
that's not real. You just don't. Cool. So I would argue, or I would posit, it is rare to want to go to these Swedish colleges, prep the audition, not go, and then sign up for improv classes. Like, what can you walk me through like the moment where you're like, nope, not going to do that. But you know what I will do? Sign up for something that is like arguably equally terrifying and potentially embarrassing. And again, I don't know what the time was between the two, but it sounds like you didn't do this thing and then pretty quickly we're like, no, fuck that. I'm going to get back on this horse.
Yeah.
Like, what was
I
that?
think I actually remembered it wrong. I think they were actually both happening simultaneously. So I was doing improv classes at the same time that I signed up for the audition for the colleges. But I think that for me it was a big difference between like classical theater and improv, just because I couldn't overthink when I was doing improv. There's no time. And like the best moments in improv are the moments that are not planned or when there are mistakes. So that's why I could do improv and not like classic theater.
Right. Oh, that's so no, because like that's always the question, right? There's how did you get into it, but then there's also like, was there a moment when you doubted it and what pulled you in a different direction? And it sounds like this was a little bit less of like completely falling off the horse and getting on a new one, and more so like you were getting to taste both. And ironically, even though I could argue like classical audition and monologue is more about perfection, is more in the sweet spot of the thing you tend toward, you got to improv, and something about the freedom, something about having to be present, something about not being able to indulge those things within you was more magnetic and pulled you in a different direction.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I really got to practice to be okay with making mistakes. So I think that was that I got to like move away from this perfectionism or this idea that I have to be perfect or else I can do it. Instead, I got to try to just throw myself out there and create whatever my brain came up with in the moment. So I think that's what it was.
Yeah. I think there's also like the lesson of stubbing your toe doesn't hurt as badly when it's taking you to the top of a mountain. Like when you get the laugh or when the scene goes the way you want it to, or you stumble into something amazing and you get that like complete full body euphoria. You're like, oh, kick me in the shin. That's fine. Like I can totally take a few of those if it means I get to do full body euphoria. Like that's all to the good. Amazing. So you got into improv. You started to work on some of that anxiety, some of that perfectionism. Maybe not like intentionally, specifically, but the natural process pulled you there. Then you go to the West End and you see Phantom, like one of the longest running, most iconic, famous, classic, old school Broadway musicals, and Book of Mormon, which, like, to be very clear, is a brilliant show and is so funny and so thoughtful. But like, they're both on stage is about as similar as they get, and they have songs. Otherwise, they are utterly different. Like, why did you pick those two? And then coming away, like, what did you get from Phantom, and what did you get from Book of Mormon?
Okay, the reason I saw Phantom was because of the boy. I was there with my ex, my boyfriend at the time, and he was a big fan of Phantom, and I think we both had done some research on Book of Mormon and thought it would be funny. but I like them both. I would say the Book of Mormon is more the type of musicals I tend to go for. Like, uh,
Sure.
I prefer comedy over this very like epic, sung through stuff. But like, I liked it. It was very cool, and all of the actors and all of the performers are very impressive. Like those are some of the best singing voices in the world. Um, so like it's very epic and impressive and cool. But I during Book of Mormon I basically peed my pants. Like that is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. Like I laughed so hard that people in the row in front of me turned around and was like, "Who is laughing so loud?"
Oh my God, that's amazing. It's like it's a really brilliant show. If you have the opportunity to go see it, because I know it's still running, it's so so good. Um, so you went to those two shows. What changed? Because it sounds like that was an inflection point. So what was different after you went and saw those two shows in the West End?
I mean, just that it like opened up this world of musicals to me, or this world of like Broadway that I didn't know that much about. So I started listening to cast albums and started like watching interviews on YouTube and started learning a little bit about what shows were running currently and actors, and like I just got this little thing I could nerd about, you know?
Nerd pockets are always good to
Yeah.
find. Cool. So theater's brought to life. Then fast forward a little bit, Hamilton comes out on Disney Plus. You see that, you fall down the Lin-Manuel rabbit hole, as I think many of us did, and then you sign up for FLS or Freestyle Life Supreme, which is now Freestyle Life Supreme Plus.
Yeah.
I think is the name of like
FLS
their
Plus, yeah.
academic branch. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And so, super, super quick for those who don't know, that is basically Freestyle Life Supreme is the small troupe that Lin-Manuel started with his friends out of college. They toured with it all over the world. I know they went to Edinburgh and they did shows in New York regularly. And through that, they spun off an academic arm called FLS Academy or FLS Plus, where basically they teach freestyling, beatboxing, as a methodology to basically help people sort of crack into themselves, I think is the most succinct way I can describe it. I also participated. That's how Michaela and I know each other. Michaela or Micki?
Both is fine.
Both.
Whatever.
Yeah. Great.
I use Micki when I beatbox.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So like it is worth noting, like that beatboxing is like a very prominent part of the programming. And like I haven't gotten to have this conversation with the people who founded it, but I think that's because within hip hop, beatboxing was such a central tenet to the art form and to what it really meant to be an MC back in the day, so to speak. But I would say most people don't get into it the way they get into the freestyling and the rest of the content. It is sort of like, if there's any part that people get through begrudgingly, it is definitely the beatboxing portion. And that was so not your experience. So like the first time you got to talk about that.
Yeah, so I think I had actually heard Shockwave talk about the basics of beatboxing before through maybe listening to an episode of the Hamilcast and maybe seeing something on YouTube. So I knew about boots and cuts, which he uses to introduce beatboxing. Beatboxing, but I hadn't really tried it. But I took the class and we were introduced to beatboxing, and I'm not sure why, but I just started doing it. And at the time, I was working as a um, mail delivery person.
Male human.
Yeah. Um, uh, and I was driving around on the Swedish countryside in a car all by myself for like 6 hours.
All day.
all
Yep.
day, which is perfect when you're trying to learn beatboxing. Because I just sat in the car
Mm.
for hours making noise. And for somewhere in those first days, something just clicked in my brain and I just fell in love. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, awesome. Love to hear that. Um, like, is there a feeling, um, or like, how would you describe that feeling? Because again, like I can intellectually understand what you're saying, but I'm
Mm.
curious, like, what did click feel like?
Um, for me, it felt like coming home, and it felt like
Mm.
finding the creative outlet that I've always searched for. Because I've always I think I've always felt like kind of musical, or like I wanting to express myself musically, but I've never really learned any instruments, and I never like I haven't been singing a lot. I have been singing at home all the time, but not like in a professional setting or anything like that. So when I found beatboxing, I found a way to like create music and express myself through music, and I think that's part of what really resonated with me.
Mm. Um, I'm realizing that I carry an assumption that beatboxing is more programmatic, and that like it's about making sounds, holding the beat, being
Mm.
consistent. But it sounds like for you there was a huge emotional and expressive component to it. Like when you're beatboxing, how do you feel like your emotions and expression are coming through?
Um, for example, when I last when I was about to compete for the Swedish Beatboxing Championships, we do a wild card, and then there are judges who picks the people who are going to compete in the competition. So through this wild card, I created a song where I expressed something I was going through at the time. Um, so it's like, and uh, like beatboxing nowadays is more like music production than just being a drum machine. Like
Way more.
people create complete songs that sound like five instruments at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The I'm so fascinated by so many things here. And again, like part of my fascination is because like I didn't have this experience. Like I can do a perfectly decent rudimentary like kick and snare, maybe throw in a hi hat, a little bit of bass sound, and I was like, cool. I didn't feel the same compulsion. So like, um, also like at the risk of spoiler alert, like you competed for the Swedish National Championship of beatboxing within 2 years of starting, which is insane. um, and you've clearly progressed so much, and I do have questions about specific sounds that you make, but I'm curious, like how did you experience like the level changes, like because I know where you started
Mm.
because I also started there. Like what were, can you define, like were there breakthrough moments where you first made a sound or held something for a long enough time, or like what were those
Mm.
moments that allowed you to feel like you were really continuing to progress?
Um, I would say in the beginning there were a lot of those moments because
Mm.
uh, in the beginning there are so many like basic sounds that are pretty easy to learn. That I just kept learning new sounds almost every week, which is like such a kick. It's like so much dopamine. Like I think, yeah, that I think that's what kept me going for the first 6 months, just learning new sounds and being so excited to learn new sounds. because it's like collecting Pokemons or something. Like when you finally find that sound, it's just the best feeling. Ah, yeah, it just feels so good. But it's hard to know if there are any specific like milestones. I mean, I would say the first, I was very proud when I created my first routine. I don't remember how far in that was. That was quite close to the championships. It was maybe like um, August, maybe.
Okay.
That felt really cool because then that's when it started to feel like, okay, I might actually start to compete. I'm actually doing this. It made it more real, which was very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, how long is a routine? Ish, I'm sure it differs person to person.
Usually 90 seconds, sometimes 2 minutes. Or there's the world's biggest beatboxing competition is called Grand Beatbox Battle, GBB. And I think they're doing 4 minute, I think.
Wow,
Yeah, that's wild.
that's
I
intense.
think
That's
90
super
seconds
intense.
is so long.
Yeah.
I
Well, like,
struggle.
how many patterns are you trying to fit into 90 seconds?
A lot of different. It's like you're building. It's like building a song. So it's a structure to it.
Mm,
So there's the structure I usually go for is like intro, verse, build up, drop ish, which is like
cool.
around 4 bars each.
Okay.
So, and then, mm, I mean, I'm still a beginner at building routines, but maybe a pattern for 2 bars and then change it up. So, a
Yeah.
lot of different patterns.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Um, and I have so many questions. I have to try and keep them vaguely organized. Like, so we touched earlier on the fact that improv started to help you kind of pry into some of that social anxiety stuff. And I'm not at the competition yet. I will ask you specifics about that, particularly your costume, because it was glorious. But before that, like, how, if at all, do you feel like beatboxing was helping you around social anxiety, performance anxiety, some of what you had been experiencing in your younger life? And I imagine you still do to some extent.
um, yeah, I think the main part that helped me was passion and the love I feel for beatboxing because
Mm,
that pushed me out of my comfort zone so many times. Um, because the love of the thing is larger than the anxiety or the stuff I'm afraid of. I'm so motivated to succeed in this thing or keep progressing that I know that I have to step out of my comfort zone in order to do that. Um, and by stepping out of my comfort zone, I challenge myself and I learn new things and I get less scared of things by challenging myself.
mm. There's oh man. I selfishly almost want to workshop this with you because I think there's something incredibly profound about what you're saying. Because earlier you used the frame, it felt like coming home.
Mm.
Like beatboxing felt like coming home to yourself in a way. And so in some ways, like, to come home, as I would frame it, is to come into safety. It's like, because you're not like, oh, should I do this or should I not? Like, so many of those questions that we can find ourselves asking are gone because you're like, no, this feels so fucking good. Like, I know that this is the thing. So then when you're confronted with, you know, should I do it or should I not? It's not actually a question. It's like, I have to do it.
Mm.
It's almost like it's an inevitability. Whereas in other cases, if you don't feel that sense of home and you're asking like, well, should I do it? You get into a weird set of questions of like, well, will it get me to the next step? Will people be impressed by it? Like, will it meet my own standards? Like blah, 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 blah. And that's, I think, where people get stuck and get lost because you're trying to solve for all these unknowable things because you're looking for that sense of safety. But if you start from safety, if you start from home, like it's such a different experience.
That's so interesting. Uh, I've never thought about it like that, but that makes so much sense. Like, it's much less scarier to step out of the comfort zone when you have comfort within yourself.
Yes. 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 And like, I don't know if this is your experience. So for me, freestyling is very similar in that way. Like, I would swear to you that the way my brain is wired and the way I love to perform, like freestyling is the art form where I feel like I'm doing exactly what I am meant to do.
Yeah.
And even within that, it's interesting. There are times when I can feel myself really doing it. There's no right or wrong way, but really doing it from like being present, connecting to my thoughts and my emotions, expressing and not worrying about where it's going to land or how it sounds and just doing it. And then other times, like there's a more technical practice, right? Like, am I in the groove of this beat? Am I on key? Am I landing my rhymes? Do I have multis in there? Am I getting any internals done? Do I have any punchlines? Like, you know, you're sharpening the sword, right? When I'm in that practice, I am so much more self-critical. It's so much less fun in a way. It's necessary practice. I totally get it. But I can feel a huge difference between when I'm like home, and just expressing to express and being in the art form, and when I am practicing to improve, or to push myself and stretch myself, which in some ways can take me out of that home. Does that resonate? Do you have that experience?
Um, I think I find it hard to like. Can you like switch between those mindsets, or because I find it hard to, because I also do like, you know, technical practices and also, but then more creative or freestyling. Uh, but I find it hard to switch focus,
Mm,
uh, and to not be critical when I'm freestyling. Uh, and that's what's hard about freestyling, right? To turn off that critical part of your brain. Um,
mm-hmm.
but because I always want to improve, I'm always, looking at how clean is that sound? Could I do this faster? Should I learn this other sound and put that in there instead, or stuff like that? And I want to turn that off when I'm freestyling, because when I'm freestyling, I'm not practicing those things. I'm practicing to be able to create in the moment and to improvise. So I'm working on like switching between those mindsets.
Yeah. I think like to me, that's one of the dirty little secrets around performance, which is that like so much of that experience that you're describing, is familiar. Totally get it. My ability to either switch or get out of the overly critical, hyper focused mindset has way more to do with like, did I get enough sleep? Have I eaten recently?
Mm,
Am I hydrated? Like when you feel safe, when your body is taken care of, when your needs are met, your brain is in a much more flexible space. And even if I'm in that critical space, I'd be like, hey, like, you don't need to be there. Like, come on back and have fun. Like, just relax. It's fine. When I am when I haven't slept well, when I'm stressed out, when I'm nervous about something, like the magnetic attraction is way more toward the critical side. Like, no, you have to get this fucking right. Like, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And like, I think it's not that critical side needs to die or go away or be eliminated. It needs to be held in a loving space, but also acknowledged for what its purpose is. Like, this is to help me refine my craft, but it's not the pursuit. The pursuit is, again, to be home and doing what I love and what feels so good. And the more I sharpen over here, the more that when I'm just expressing, it sounds better and better. It connects to people more deeply. It's more fun to watch and to perform.
Yeah.
So like it's a balancing act, right? And again, the piece I feel like I've learned for a lot of reasons, but mine came way more from being an athlete for a long time. And like some days you go to do a run and like it's on the schedule. I know what I'm supposed to do. And the body or the mind or both are just like, nope. I was like, what do you mean no? Like, we've done this 100 times. It's like, yeah, but no.
Yeah.
And learning to honor and respect that no of like, cool, today's not my day. I'll stretch. I'll do some strength work. I'll take a shower. I'll read. I'll take a nap. Again, like I'll come back to some of the fundamental needs that I have and we'll pick it up again tomorrow. Because again, I'm not looking at a training cycle as 1 or 2 weeks. Like, I'm training for life.
Exactly.
I'm training for forever.
Yeah.
So like in the context of forever, day off, oh my God, it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter. Particularly if today's day off means I show up to the next 3 days better rested, better energized, and having more fun. Like, ooh, I'll take the day off. That is way better than having 4 days in a row where I'm depleted, frustrated, not hitting the workout, etc. And so like with music, it's a newer pursuit. And so I'm more sensitive to days off because I'm like, oh, fuck, like I'm falling behind and I got to get this music out and I have a show coming up and blah, 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 blah. But like the truth is the same, which is that like the rest, the recovery, the honoring of self is going to serve me so much more deeply than pushing through it or forcing yourself or whatever it would be. Because I know the joke is like, if I show up more days than not over the next 5 years, I will do way better than if I maximize this 1 week or this 1 day, right? Like it's no contest.
Rest is important.
Rest is important. Your body is important. Your health is important. Your social life is important. Like these things all matter. And I think what's tough, and I'm sympathetic, and I appreciate we've kind of deviated from the original conversation. We'll circle back. We'll get there. It's really nice to have black and white guidelines because it makes it easier. Like I don't know if I totally buy the science around fasting. What I understand is that when you tell someone eat during these hours and don't eat during these hours, no, like some carbs, but not all carbs, and some protein, but not fat, and candy once a week, but also never this. It's like, fuck off. Like, who can like bring forth the conscious effort to be aware of all those things at once? Whereas with fasting, it's like, great, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's when I eat. And from 4 p.m. until 10 a.m. the next day, I don't eat. Really fucking easy. And now all that mental chatter, the fucking, like, it's all gone. It's so much easier. So like, I'm sympathetic that easier, cleaner, distinct rules make more sense. But the truth is what your body needs and what you need vacillate and fluctuate a lot more than like this 1 hourly chunk or this one kind of window.
Yeah.
So finding a way to be gentle enough with yourself to allow for variability and hard enough on yourself to make sure you keep going, that sweet spot. I think that's what I find. I feel like most of my decisions around chasing that experience of like being able to show up almost all the time and then honoring when I can't. And if I can, enjoy when I'm not. And be like, great, I'm going to go to the movies. Or like fuck off and watch a Netflix series all day, which I don't do more than 2 or 3 days a year. So when I'm going to do it, like clear the schedule, turn off the phone, on my couch. Like this is what we're doing right now. And it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Please allow me to briefly interrupt my wonderful conversation to let you know about a few things that we have coming up. I have 2 shows on deck. One is on February 23rd up in Boulder. It is with So Far Sounds, which means the location is actually undisclosed. You buy your ticket the day of the show. They will send you an email with the official location. They're always in really interesting spots. It's a great crowd. It's a great community of artists. Highly, highly recommended. And then I have a show on the 10th with Concert. That's Concert at the Roxy opening up for Flojo. I'm going to be doing brand new sets for both shows, so I'm very excited about them. If you would like tickets or more information, please go to www.jackdawkinsraps.com. So, anywho, you went to the Swedish National Beatboxing Championship, which is amazing. And as someone who has suffered from performance anxiety, I imagine that there might have been some stress. Like, what was preparing like, and what was your performance like? Were you like, yeah?
Yeah. I preparing was quite intense. Because I wanted to have at least 4 routines. Because the way the competition works is through battles. So sometimes in the beatbox competitions, we first have eliminations, which is when one person goes up, do their thing, and then the judges pick out like 16 beatboxers and then they battle. But we skipped the elimination round and went straight into battles. And my goal, since I'm a beginner and this was my first time, I wanted to have a realistic goal. So my goal was to win my first battle. So and each battle is, you do 2 rounds. So you need 2 routines per battle. So since my goal was to win my first battle, I knew I needed 4 routines. And I was not sure I would qualify, so I did not prepare any routines before, because all my focus went into doing this wild card in order to just qualify. And I didn't want to put in all that energy if I wasn't going to qualify. So when I qualified, there was just a month left until the battle, I think. So I had a month to prepare 4 routines.
4 routines.
So I don't remember exactly, but I did, like the last week, I think I did like 3 hours every day of just beatboxing and practicing and I was creating routines last minutes, like just a few days before the battle. So it was very, very intense. But like it was fun. It's the most focused I've ever been, I think, because my mind was constantly thinking about what routines am I going to do, what sounds am I going to use. So like while I was traveling to work or sometimes at work, I was just thinking about like melodies and lyrics and sounds, and then when I got home, I would start creating them. So yeah, that was that process of before. And yeah, should I talk about the battle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to the battle, and my battle was, we were doing 8 battles, and my battle was number 6. So I had some time to be nervous. I had an hour of watching my friends do their battles. So I was, I was very, 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 very nervous. But some of my family members came. My grandma came.
So cute.
Yeah, there was. My family have never seen a beatbox battle before, but they all loved it. Like they have all said to me, like,
Amazing.
"Oh, that was so fun."
Yeah, actually, I want to pause you here. Like, so beatboxing is not a traditional sort of direction to go into or pursue. Like, what has it been like sharing that practice and that passion with your family and like and your friends too? Like, because I imagine like you were with a boy who liked Phantom. So like you found other theater folk. I imagine like you have friends in that space. But again, beatboxing and musical theater, again, really until Hamilton. And even then, it's not like beatboxing is a huge part of that show. Like they're not the same. So like what has been the reaction of the people in your life as you have kind of like gotten deeper and deeper into this pursuit?
Yeah, the all reactions have been very positive. Of course, people are like a, a little bit they don't know exactly what it is always. They're like, beatboxing, what is that? Why, how did you, why, what? Like, um, but my family have all been very supportive and very excited because they've seen what this journey has done to me and my well-being, and how much it has pushed me out of my comfort zone, and how, it has led me to do stuff that I wouldn't otherwise have done, like freaking being in the Swedish Beatboxing Championships. Um, so yeah, they're very excited and supportive and happy about me doing something that brings me joy. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I'm so happy to hear that. Did you know that that was going to be the case, or was there some nervousness?
Uh, no, they have always been very supportive of me doing my own thing. So no, I was not nervous.
Great. I love that. Okay. So you're an hour, your family's there, your grandma's there, you're stepping into your first battle. What happened?
Yeah. So you toss a coin who's going first, which I won. So the other person got to go first. And then I did a routine where I pretended to sleep on the stage. And I did like a remix of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was my first round. And then my second round is a song that is called Balls. Which,
As in, like, this is a song you wrote, or like this is a different
no,
as an
it's a
existing
song.
No, you wrote this.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a song I wrote.
Called Balls.
It's called Balls, and it started with like ball noises. So like, ooh, and then the beat was like, balls, balls. Yeah. Yeah, and then I also had some lyrics that was like, it's like, balls, mine are bigger than yours.
Amazing.
So yeah, I thought, go hard or go home. I got this opportunity. I might as well go as hard as I possibly can.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was that. And then I lost the battle. Yeah. But I did get some fun reactions from the audience. I got some laughs, and I talked to the judges afterwards, and they liked my showmanship and my stage presence, and like that I had the courage to do something different. So yeah.
Yeah. There's an important piece we have slightly glossed over, which is that you were the first woman ever to perform in this competition. And to some extent, like, it doesn't even matter how old it is, like it is 2023. Like there are, in a good way, a dying number of institutions where no women have been involved. Did you feel, I mean, how did that feel, like being the first woman?
I mean, first of all, I'm so proud of that. That feels so good. And like what I can say is, before I joined the community, and because it took me a year and a half into my beatboxing journey before I actually met other beatboxers in person. Um, so I will say it was a little bit daunting knowing that this is a group of just guys, and I'm coming in there as a woman. Um, but everyone has been very supportive and kind, and it's as I don't know how other beatboxing communities in other countries are, but in Sweden, I will say that it's a very loving and supportive community. Like every time someone lost a battle, everyone would walk up to that person and like give them hugs and give them fist bumps and like talk to them. And yeah, it's a very supportive and loving community that I'm happy to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, it's not, I mean, it sounds like you already knew a good number of the competitors because you've been in the circles and you've been in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I met some of them because we had a little small battle that I didn't compete in, but it was in the city where I live. So we had a small battle in September, I think. So I got to meet some of them, and then we talk online and stuff like that. So I knew a lot of them, which yeah, made it easier.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm curious, like now having been to the championship and watched a lot of people beatbox, like what in your mind makes a great beatboxing performance? Like what are the elements?
Um, there's a lot, but first of all, um, yeah, what is the most important thing? There's a lot of things that goes into it, but you need to have very clean sounds. They need to be strong and clean. Um, and so there are some things that you are judged on, and it's usually, let's see, I think it's like technicality, like how technically advanced are your sounds and how clean are they. Musicality, like melody, structures, pitch, stuff like that. Um, Creativity, no. Oh my god, I forgot the word. What is a word for when you're like unique or doing something that originality? Yeah,
Okay.
originality is a very, very big part. It's usually originality is, I think, usually um, the most important part when you're judging beatboxing, because we want to see things that doesn't sound like other beatboxers or other things. We want the art form to keep progressing and develop. So someone who has clean sounds, has musicality, is original. Yeah, that's a good beatboxer.
Awesome. Were there any performers, with the winner or otherwise, who did something specific that you really loved or that were
Mm,
really surprised by?
um, oh, that's a good question. There's nothing specifically that comes to mind, but uh, since it was my first time, like, or not, but kind of my first time hearing a battle live on a sound system, it was really, really cool to hear some of the deep basses, like sub basses that you can like feel in your chest. That's really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Um, like on topic, but slightly not. Who are your favorite beatboxers? Like
Hmm.
who's out in the world doing stuff that you're like that is cool.
Yeah, my style is very melodic and musical. Like I love melodies and like songs. There's a beatboxer called Gene Shinosaki, who's one of the best in the world. Love him. Love a guy called Shogo. I also like his. Those are the three that first comes to mind. But I like. I'm a sucker for melodies. Yeah.
So good. Like, last couple of questions, unless there's more we find to dig into. So like within your own repertoire, what is your favorite sound or technique? What do you love the most of what you do?
Oh, that's a good question. I used to really, when I started learning it, I really liked beat rhyming, which is when you sing and beatbox at the same time. I also like, I don't use it very much anymore, but I like my trumpet quite a lot. But I'm still learning new sounds and trying. I yeah, I wish I had more sounds because I still feel like most of my sounds are on a beginner level. But yeah,
That.
yeah. Oh, I really like the tennis pop sound that I did for my balls routine. Oh.
It's a great one.
It's fun.
Also, what's amazing is like the shape that your mouth makes when you make that sound in my brain doesn't line up with the sound itself.
No.
And so I'm like,
yeah,
I don't understand the physics of what's happening here, but
you have to
great.
look very silly.
Yeah. Hey, I'm part of the process, right?
Yes.
So you're working on a lot of stuff. Anyone who is still pursuing a craft is, but like, is there a specific technique or breakthrough that you feel like you are most excited about right
now? So there's a sound that I've that I've been trying to learn for, I don't know, over a year, and it's a sound that is hard. Like, it takes people a long time. I've heard someone say that it took them 6 years just to learn the sound, and I don't know it yet. It's called a lip roll. It's when you like do a lip boss or you vibrate at the side of your mouth. Like, I can do it. So that's what it sounds like when you can't do it. But I would love to learn that sound because it's frustrating to practice something for so long and not getting it. But other than that, I have a list in my phone of, I don't know, 20 different sounds that I want to learn. And that's, I think, my main challenge right now, to find focus. Because there's so many different things I want to learn. And yeah, I need to decide on like 2 things so that I can learn them instead of just having a list of stuff I want to learn.
Yeah. Or like, again, I think what I think about all the time is like, as long as you don't quit, you'll get to them.
Yeah.
When the time is right. And either it's because like you're in another competition and you're doing a routine and you're like, ooh, that one on the list fits here, and now I need to learn it because, right? Like, the universe provides. As long as you keep going, like, you will find an answer to what order the things need to happen. I have no doubt. I want to ask one final question, because I think like when I watch you beatbox, the thing I get most excited about is your snare. And the reason is, I think a lot of people mess this up. They think the kick, the bass drum, is what holds a beat together. It's not. The snare is everything. The snare creates the groove. Like, the snare creates everything. And And here's another like fun factoid. When you are learning to beatbox, what they will tell you to do is to say the word boots and cuts. So it's boots, you get that pop, and then cuts. And like you can just sit there and go boots and cuts and boots and cuts. And like that's the super, super elementary way, right? But you have clearly evolved to probably multiple, but you have an air blown snare, which if you could demonstrate would be great.
Do you mean spit snare? Do you mean that one? Or do you mean
that second one?
Yeah, that's a pretty basic snare too. It's called a PF snare because you're making the sounds P and F together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the piece I love about yours is the pop to it. Like when you talk about clarity of sound, like that rings through so clearly as a snare. And so like, was that something that came online early for you? Was that something that you had to practice extra? Or like, I think we're all at some point given like the gift of a couple of things we just happen to be really good at. Like, where did that fall for you?
I mean, I don't know if I think that might have been something that came quite easy to me. Like the clarity of those basic sounds. I've been told that. So when I started beatboxing, like 3 months in, I started taking lessons with two-time world beatbox champion Kayla Milady.
Who's amazing.
Yeah. But we practice a lot of emphasizing sounds, and I've been told that my sounds are very clean. I don't know where that comes from, but apparently that's something that came quite easy for me. Yeah.
Amazing. Love to hear it. I love it when things come easily. Michaela, Micki,
Yeah.
Wink, beatboxing name. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing your story. Are there any parting words or thoughts you would want to offer to someone who is either thinking about getting into beatboxing or experiencing some version of performance or social anxiety?
I would say do the thing. Is like if there's something that you think you might want to do, you want to do it. And I know that's so easy to say, but like I said earlier, step out of your comfort zone, because outside of the comfort zone is where the magic happens. That's where all the fun stuff are. So do the thing and the magic will happen.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Michaela, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening because it's a little later than it is here in Colorado. And hopefully in some amount of time, we will do another one of these and we can hear all about how your practice has evolved and how your battle skills have evolved. And whatever the journey may bring you next. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to Stage Dive. I'm having so much fun having all these conversations and meeting these wonderful, wonderful people. But I appreciate that this is also going out to you, the person who is listening. So my request, my ask, my desire, if you have any curiosities, questions, guest recommendations, suggestions for the podcast, please send us an email at stagedivepodcast@gmail.com. We read every single email that comes through. We will get back to you. We really do want to hear what you love about the podcast, things that you think could improve, and how we can make this a better show for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much.